we will have a Today we will have a presentation by Dr. Sheema Khan on gender analysis of boards of Canadian Muslim charitable institutions from 2014 to 2018. Before I introduce you to Sheema Khan, I would like to begin with a land acknowledgement. Even as we gather virtually, it is important that each and every one of us respectfully acknowledges and recognizes the ancestral, treaty, and unceded territories of all of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples that call our respective lands home. From coast to coast to coast, we deeply appreciate the historic connection of all Indigenous peoples to these lands. We acknowledge the unique and sacred relationship that Indigenous peoples have with the land, water, and all living creatures, and their role in protecting the earth since the beginning. We must be grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and meet here, and thank all the generations of people who have been stewards of these lands for thousands of years. As Canadian Muslim women, we are committed to confronting historical and ongoing colonialism and violence against Indigenous communities and joining in solidarity with Indigenous communities in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation. Thank you once again for joining us, and salams to all of you. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce you to our presenter this afternoon, Dr. Sheema Khan. Sheema holds a master's in physics and a PhD in chemical physics, both from Harvard University. She's an inventor on a number of patents in drug delivery and has been a patent agent since 2001. She currently works as a consultant with the Stratford Group in intellectual property strategy. Since 2002, she has been a monthly columnist for the Globe and Mail, writing about issues pertaining to Islam and Muslims in Canada. A collection of her columns was published in the book Of Hockey and Hijab, Reflections of a Canadian Muslim Woman. She is the recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal for service to Canada, and she's currently on the board of the United Nations Association Canada and the Harvard Club of Ottawa. She's also a member of the Ottawa chapter of the Canadian Council of Muslim Women, and she'll tell you momentarily about another organization that she's now leading. Sheema is no stranger to Muslims in this country, and she takes on sometimes controversial topics and challenges our intellect and makes us think critically about issues in our communities. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Sheema to present her research, and also she will introduce her co-presenter or researcher, Levin, please. Thank you, Sheema.
Thank you, Nuzhat. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Peace be upon you. As Nuzhat mentioned, I'm now with the Mujadala Center. This is an organization we just incorporated, I think, two and a half weeks ago. And just a little bit about what the name Mujadala means. Mujadala is the title of the 58th chapter of the Quran. And it refers to the woman who pleaded or complained to God regarding a form of domestic abuse that was prevalent at the time. And she pleaded against this practice. And the first 4 verses of that chapter allude to her complaint and what was done about it. So just briefly, during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, there was a common practice amongst the Arabs that when a man was unhappy with his wife and he wanted to punish her, he would say to her, "Your back is like the back of my mother," which meant that he didn't divorce her, but he was free from all obligations to her, intimate, whatever. And so she was in limbo and she could do nothing about it until he decided to take her back. It was another patriarchal practice, a sense of entitlement, and it was quite prevalent. Now, this woman, her name was Khawla bint Thalaba, and she was a Muslim woman. She was a believer in the revelation, as was her husband. And they were middle-aged. This is in Medina, when one day he comes home, they have an argument. He gets mad at her. He says to her, "Your back is like the back of my mother," and he leaves. And she's furious. She's just so angry that just with those words, he can, he's just ruined her life, but she can't really get out of her life or do anything because of this custom. And she vows that she's going to take it to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and ask him to say something about it. In the meantime, her husband comes back. He's cooled off. And he tries to apologize. He tries to, sweeten her up. And she says no. She's so angry. And she refuses any of his, nice words or attempts to sweet talk her. And she leaves. And she goes to the Prophet, peace be upon him. And she says to him, "Look, I've given him the best years of my life. I've raised his children. I do everything. And now with, with those few words, he can just put me aside like that. There's nothing I can do about it. It's humiliating. I want you to say something about this." And so the Prophet, peace be upon him, initially says, "Well, whenever there's a marital dispute, he'd always try to make things better and say, oh, he's your cousin, he's a bit older, just sort of go easy on him." And she says no. I mean, just think about this. She says no to the Prophet, peace be upon him. And she makes this, complaint to God and to the Prophet. And so the Prophet, peace be upon him, is quiet. And then 4 verses are revealed, namely that indeed God has heard the complaint of the woman who has pleaded regarding her husband. And then the act of calling your wife like your mother, God says that it is a lie, and this practice is abominable. And not only that, says that those who practice this and want to repent, repentance isn't enough. There's a huge penalty. They have to either pay for the feeding, they have to free a slave. And if they can't do that, then they have to pay for the feeding of 60 poor people. And if they can't afford that, they have to fast for 2 consecutive months. And with those 4 verses, that practice was abolished. And if anything, this is preserved in the Quran for time immemorial. And it points to when women who undergo forms of abuse within their community due to patriarchal customs, we are not bound to just simply take it. We have to speak up against it for our own dignity and to change. So a few of us started the Mujadala Center in that spirit. We're a think tank, research-based. We're a complement to CCMW in that we're undergoing quite a bit of research, and this project that you're going to hear about is one of those. Another issue we've been working on for the past, I think, 12, 18 months during COVID has been the issue of polygamy, and you're going to be hearing a lot more from that. So this is just an introduction to the Mujadala Center. Okay. So now for this particular project, the people who are involved, myself, we have a wonderful summer student, Lavin Balendran. Dalia, my daughter, whom I corralled into doing some of the research, was involved from July to December. And we've had support from Kim Eichlen and Sabah Sajad Hazai, who are 2 other directors of the Mujadala Institute. And we had early support of this project 2 years ago with the Ottawa chapter of the Canadian Council of Muslim Women. Now, just a few words about Lavin. I mean, he's a phenomenally talented young man based in Toronto. He is a Lawrence Scholar. And for those of you who don't know, this is a prestigious award given to students, a $100,000 award for a 4-year study at the university of their choice, program of their choice. And Lavin is studying engineering at UBC. And this summer, he has kindly agreed to be our summer student or summer research student. And we have him for 12 weeks, and we'll be working on a number of projects that we're undertaking. And he's done quite a bit for this particular presentation. All right, just again, some research credit. You can see what the 3 of us have done. And again, a little bit about the resources. What we did is we went to the Canada Revenue Agency website. We searched the charities. So we're only looking at those organizations that are registered charities. And so we looked up names of charities by name or by category to get a list of all the registered charities, Muslim charities in Canada. Again, this is technical details for those who would like to know more, but these are the search terms we used in the name of the organization. So we looked up mosque, masjid, Muslim, Musulman, Islam. And we also looked up the category Islam. And we did it a number of times because the data gets updated. And we try to do an update of our own search every 6 months. Oh, as I go on, if you have questions while I'm speaking, please raise your hand so that the moderators can see if you have a question, and I will answer your question during the presentation rather than waiting till the end. So again, this is a bit of about the data compilation. So basically what happens, we put in these search terms and we get hundreds of Muslim charitable organizations, and we pick one. So for a given organization, that organization has to have filed a tax return with the CRA. And part of that information in the tax return includes the list of office holders, meaning people on the board. So we have a list of the names of a board of a given organization for the past 5 years, because the public data is 5 years old. There's data before 2016 or 15, but that's now been archived. And so we can see the gender of a board of an organization for each year going back to 2015. And we can do that for hundreds of Muslim organizations. And this is what we did. We studied the gender makeup of the boards of these hundreds of organizations over a 5-year period. Okay. Any questions? No. And we did different analyses. We looked at what happened nationally, provincially, and municipally. And just a small correction, the title of this talk should be from 2014 to 2019. Lavin had updated the data to include 2019. So here's some of the main findings. So nationally, in 2019, 419 organizations, Muslim charitable organizations, filed a CRA tax return. If you look, all those 419 organizations had a total of 22,637 office holder positions. And women held roughly 1 in 9 of those positions. That is 11%. What's really disconcerting is of those 419 organizations, 66% had absolutely no women on their boards. And if you expand this, 80% of those organizations had 20% or fewer women on the boards. So those are the main findings nationally. Any questions? Okay. Provincially, well, Ontario has the highest percentage of board positions, followed by Alberta, Quebec, and BC. So Ontario, as you will see, has the greatest number of Muslim organizations in the country. When it comes to which province has the highest percentage of women on boards, it's Manitoba, 30%, followed by New Brunswick at 20%, and then we have a drop-off with Ontario. Newfoundland has a rate of 33%, but that's because it only has one organization, and every year it has 1/3 of its board position filled by women. Nova Scotia had the lowest percentage of women on boards. It had absolutely zero, no women on their boards in 2019. As you will see, this is actually, they've been going down for a while, followed by BC and Saskatchewan. BC has only 5.3%. And then again, Nova Scotia has the highest percentage of organizations with no women on their boards. 100% of Muslim organizations in Nova Scotia have no women. And then BC, almost 80%, Quebec, almost 76%, and Saskatchewan, like 3/4, no women on the boards of their organizations. For municipal, what we did is we looked at cities where there were at least 3 registered organizations, and we found that Mississauga had the most with 32, and then you can see Toronto, Scarborough, Brampton, and then Edmonton. Winnipeg had the highest percentage of women on boards, followed by Kitchener, 25%, and Saint Laurent, which is outside of Montreal, and Ottawa. The cities which had the lowest rankings were Ottawa, Waterloo, Oakville, Halifax, and Laval. They had no women on any of the boards in their organizations in their cities. Regina, Surrey, Richmond, and Vancouver followed. And again, Oshawa, Waterloo, Oakville, Halifax, and Laval, 100% of the organizations in those cities had absolutely no women. And then you can see Regina, 4 out of 5 organizations had no women, and then at Hamilton as well. So you can see which cities are, if you like, the worst for women. Are there any questions before I dive into the data? Okay. So we're going to give you a little bit of history. So this graph shows how, this shows when an organization was first registered with the CRA. So it all began in 1967, and in 1967 there are about, I think 2 organizations that first registered. This is when they first registered, and as you can see, there's a steady climb. More and more as more and more charitable Muslim organizations come into play. You get an increase, and so there's a trend going upward. There was a dip here, which is after 9/11, when fewer organizations were, new organizations were being built and founded. As you know, probably, I'm sure before 9/11, a lot of, we don't have the figures, but many mosques were being built by overseas donations. And I think those kind of dried up, or there was, a more, we should think twice about getting money from Saudi after 9/11. So there was a dip, but then things went back up and going. And then there's this dip here from 2019 to 2020. And we'll probably see it again. And that's because of COVID. People just, there was, donations dried up as people did not have money to donate, given COVID. So you'll see noticeable dips, which reflect sort of wider pictures in what's happening in the country. Any questions? And then we'll just, we just give you a historical trend. You can see, from the data that we've studied from 2014 to 2019, there's been a steady increase in the number of organizations that have, registered with CRA as a charitable organization. It's been steadily going upwards. And with that, you would think the number of board positions would also go, but for some reason here, there's a slight dip. We're not sure why that is. We have to examine that further. Now, how have women fared? Well, the lowest year was 2014. If anything, it's good. We're going up, roughly. But in the past 3 years, you can see there really hasn't been much change. We're at 11.2%. And I joke with people, that we will get to 50% maybe by the day of judgment. I don't know. It's just very slow. But here you have it. We're kind of stuck at roughly 11%. Now, this is in 2019. So if you look, 275 of 419 organizations had no women. And then this is how many organizations had between 0 and 5%. 1. 5 to 10%, 7, and so on. As you can see, there are 6 organizations in the country which have only women on their boards. Okay. It's very interesting. I think this is really promising that you have, 16 organizations which have rough parity or above. So about 27 organizations have more. So this is something we'll be monitoring with time. Have these numbers been going up or down? But this has not moved, unfortunately. And here we go. So the percentage of organizations with no women versus year, it's been getting a bit better, but not much. From 2018 to 2019, there's been absolutely no movement. 2/3 of organizations across this country have absolutely no women on their boards.
Hi, Sheema.
Yeah. Yes.
Nuzat has her hand up.
Yes, please go ahead. Hello?
Thank you, Sheema. Yeah. Yes, hi. That small percentage where there were only women. So 6 organizations. So these are not mosques, or are they?
They are primarily women's organizations. I don't have the list in front of me, but I remember from 2018, there was Ottawa Muslim Women's,
Mm-hmm.
OMWO. There was in Winnipeg, I think Islamic Social Services Association.
Yes.
No, there's a Canadian Muslim Women's Organization out in Winnipeg. Their charity, yeah, that was two. CCMW is not there because you aren't registered as a charity, right? So
at that time we were not.
Not right.
Of course.
Yeah. So I have we just got this data like I think last week or 2 weeks ago, and I don't know, Lavin, do you recall if any of those were actually mosques?
Well,
I don't believe so.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, we have the women's mosque, but I don't know if they're a registered charity yet.
No,
So,
they're not.
Okay. So in any case, I just thought I'd ask if you knew which organizations they were, because I didn't think that they would be necessarily mosques.
Yeah. So
Okay,
yeah, these are
thanks.
just, charitable registered. Some are mosques, some are foundations, some are centers, and some are, like the Ottawa Muslim Women's Organization,
Yes.
the Canadian Women, I think Muslim Women's Institute in Winnipeg, and I'd have to see what the other four are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. And again, this is the same thing. Of the 416, 283 have 10% or less women, so on and so forth. So, roughly 400 out of the 419 have 50% or fewer women, and 20 have more than 50%. Okay. Now, what's happening in the provinces? As I said, you can see Ontario has the largest number of organizations, 250, whereas the other provinces have far fewer. Now, PEI, we have 0 because even though I know there's a mosque in PEI, they have not registered with CRA as a charity, so they do not appear in our database. Okay. So what we did is we divided these, and then you can see Ontario has the largest number of board positions, like percentage-wise. Again, it just dominates the scene throughout the country. And so we divided these provinces into 4 tiers. Tier 1 Ontario, we're just, because as you can see, it has 250 organizations. Then the second tier involves BC, Alberta, and Quebec, right? And then tier 3 would be Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And tier 4 would be, the Maritimes and the Yukon territories. It just makes our analysis a bit easier. So here we're looking at tier 1 and tier 2. So percentage of board positions by province. This is historically, you can see Ontario has been dominating and continues to dominate. Alberta, you can see an increase and then slightly tapering off. And then Quebec and BC are roughly the same.
Sorry,
Now-
Sheema, I
yep.
just have a question in the chat.
Yep.
Okay,
Please.
so it says, do you know how had been the change in the population of Muslim women versus Muslim men in these Canadian provinces or cities?
Oh, change in population. Oh, no, we don't have that data. No. I don't know how we would get that data, to be honest.
Well, you know what? I think we have one of the people in our audience who knows a lot about data. Andrew, would you be able to answer this question? I know it's specific to Muslim women and Muslim men, but from what I've seen, the population is almost always at par, or the female population is generally a little bit higher. So Andrew, feel free to jump in.
Yes, please.
Excellent question. I don't know. I don't want to embarrass him. I don't know what happened. Is he still with us? Maybe he stepped out.
Okay. All right. So no, I don't have that data. But I mean, we could estimate 50-50 or maybe, 51-49.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, a percentage of women on boards, you can see that Manitoba has the highest. Newfoundland, this is only based on one organization, so it's sort of an outlier. And then New Brunswick, and then you've got Ontario, Alberta, Quebec, and then BC and Saskatchewan. And then we can look at how here's the 2019 snapshot. How has it been historically? So we did this for all the provinces. Again, this is Newfoundland. They've had one organization and they've had the same makeup for 6 years now. But Manitoba is interesting. They went up and now they've sort of on a steady decline. Saskatchewan, this is Alberta. I believe this is Alberta. Oh, no, this is not Alberta. This is New Brunswick, right? It has sharply gone up and then taper. It's showing a good trend, I would say. This orange one is Saskatchewan. It's sort of showing a downward trend. The green is BC. It started at 5 and it's now again at 5. It's never gone higher than 10%, but we've seen a decrease. This blue one is Quebec, this one here, and you can see it's slightly upward trend. Nova Scotia, it went up, and I don't know what happened. It's come down to 0. Like it was, it was up to almost 10% in 2017, and last 2018. It was up there, and now it's like 2019. There are absolutely no women on the boards.
Sorry, Sheema. Sajida has a question.
Sure. You go ahead.
Hello, Sajida.
Sajida, you need to unmute.
I would like to know if in Quebec you have included French-speaking organizations.
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
French. Yeah. So let's look at tier 1. This is Ontario. So you can see that Ontario, has been steadily increasing with a slight dip. So let's see what happens in 2020. But the fact that it's slightly increasing over this time, I think is good. Then we go to tier 2. That would be Quebec, British Columbia, and Alberta. Let's look at British Columbia. They started, low, and then they've just been steadily decreasing since 2015. It's a steady decrease. Alberta, which is gray, you can see sort of they went down, but they've shown a steady increase in time, which is really good sign. Even though they're only at 10.5% in 2019, they've been increasing, as you can see. We go back to 2015. And Quebec, sort of up and down, but I'd say overall, it's again, they've been increasing slowly. So BC is a disappointment, but Alberta is on the right track, and so is Quebec. Let's go now to Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Again, Manitoba is really well, and they had this drop off. Sorry, we will go like this. We have the dates reversed. Sorry for that, but 2014 and up, and then it's been slid. You can see there's a downward trend from 2015 to 2019. Saskatchewan sort of up and down, up and down. It seems every 2 years they go up and then they go down. 2 years up and down. So maybe they're following. There's something going on every 3 years there. And then finally, the Maritime provinces. Again, Newfoundland, I wouldn't really, like I said, it's one organization, but you could follow Nova Scotia. Again, this is disappointing. They were fine. They were going up, and now they have nothing. No women. And then New Brunswick, they've been pretty good. 20%. That's 1 in 5. That's an excellent number compared to everyone else.
Sorry,
Yep.
Sheema, I have another question
Please.
in the chat.
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so it says, if there's so much fluctuation in the number of women in the boards over the years, it may be an indication that either they don't have an article of association which assign a fixed quota for women, or they keep changing their articles, or they can't find women who are interested in these positions. Sorry, I guess it's a more of a statement than a question.
Right. Yeah, we don't know why these numbers are where they're at, right? Like we're just presenting them, this is what we found. And like I said, I mean, this is the first time, we've done this research, and we're hoping that it will be the springboard for other research going forward. Like there's so much you can do with this. So many questions you can ask, and we're just hoping this is just the start of people or researchers, really digging deeper. So, okay, and now we come to organizations. How many percentage of those organizations in each province have absolutely no women? Nova Scotia is 100%. Again, Yukon territories, I wouldn't, like, this is an asterisk. It should be with an asterisk. I think it's only one organization. But Nova Scotia, 0. And, BC, almost 4 and 5. Saskatchewan, 3 out of 4. Quebec, 3 out of 4 as well, have no women. Ontario and Alberta are at 62 and 68%. New Brunswick, 50% have no women. Manitoba, roughly 27%. But these are not, these numbers here are really disappointing, especially Ontario, given that it has the largest number of, the greatest number of organizations. And still, 6 out of 10 have no women. And then we can see this, historically. So this is Ontario, Tier 1. Even though 62% of the organizations in Ontario have no women, nonetheless, you can see that they've been improving with time. So it'll take time, but it's going in the right direction in Ontario. If you now look at British Columbia, Alberta, and Quebec. So British Columbia, again, 2014, like almost 90%, 9 in 10 organizations had no women. They've been kind of going up and down, and they're at 78%. So I don't know. To me, it's just fluctuating. It's not really improving or getting worse. Alberta, again, they've been. I see a decrease. If you look at the gray rectangles, let's say from 2015, they've gone from 82% organizations having no women down to 68%, which is a good sign. And then finally, Quebec, with the blue, again, down and up. It just fluctuating, but hovering around 76%. And then we go to Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Saskatchewan, it seems to be getting worse. Let's say 50% in 2014 had no women. They improved, and then they've been steadily getting worse. Fewer and fewer women in the board positions. Manitoba, the same thing. It's remarkable. In 2015, only 11%, only 11% of the organizations had no women. But you can see that's been steadily increasing. So Manitoba is actually getting worse. And then we go to the Maritimes. I would not, when we redo this, we won't include the Yukon or Newfoundland because they are one-offs. So if you look at New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, so New Brunswick is the blue. In 2014 they had absolutely no women on the boards, but and then only 1/3 and so on. But they've been getting progressively better. New Brunswick, Nova Scotia has been getting progressively worse. Well, they were fine, and then in 1 year they had this huge. I don't know what happened to all the women in Nova Scotia. if you want to look at the number of board positions, so we looked at it per capita. So we took the population of each of the provinces. And so we took the board positions per 100,000. And again, Ontario still dominates. And the national average is 7. Okay. And then again, we did this also for the number of organizations per 100,000. Ontario dominates. Any questions? We'll just now go to the cities. So we grouped cities into 2 tiers. Cities that had 7 or more organizations were deemed as tier 1 cities. You can see they include a lot of cities in the GTA, Etobicoke, Scarborough, Mississauga, Toronto. And then you have the major metropolitan centers of Winnipeg, Ottawa, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Montreal. And as you can see, Mississauga has a whopping 32 registered charitable organizations, followed by Toronto and Scarborough. And then we went to the tier 2. These are organizations, cities with 3 to 6. And again, dominated a lot by Ontario cities. And then, of course, suburbs of major metropolitan centers and smaller towns such as Waterloo and Saskatoon, Oshawa, etc. Okay. So we divided it, like I said, tier 1 and tier 2. And then again, tier 1, percentage of women on boards. Winnipeg had the highest. Saint Laurent in Quebec, which is sort of a suburb of Montreal, did pretty well, as did Ottawa. So these are the top 3. Other places like Toronto and Montreal had fewer, 16.2%, 10.3%, and so on. Surrey, if you go back, Surrey has 14 organizations, and only women occupy only 4% of the boards. So Surrey is and Vancouver, again, sort of a reflection of British Columbia. Something's going on there. Tier 2 tier 2 cities, you can see a number of them: Oshawa, Longueuil, Chatham, Laval, Oakville, have no women on the boards of any of the organizations in their cities. Some of the better ones are Cornwall, 1/3, which is great, and Kitchener. And then you can see the rest. So again, how many of the organizations in each of these tier 1 cities have no women? Well, Surrey, 80% have none. And then Vancouver, again, 71%, and Scarborough, 68%, and so on. The best was Winnipeg, only 30% had no women. But you can see, it's, all of these major cities, London, so on, they have half or more of these organizations don't have any women present in the decision-making of their institutions. You can do the same thing for the tier 2 cities. Waterloo has absolutely none of the organizations in Waterloo, in Oshawa, in Longueuil, in Halifax, in Laval, and Oakville. None of them have any women involved in the decision-making process in their institutions. Some of the better ones: Thornhill, Richmond Hill, and York. Now, I don't know the GTA, so I don't know, what's in the water in Thornhill and Richmond Hill. Okay, someone is shocked, I see. I'm not. Okay, before I go to the next steps, are there any questions or comments? No, okay. So here are the next steps. Well, we're going to update the database in December. So we update it every 6 months. So our next update will be in January 2020. Sorry, it'll be in December 2021. By then, all the 2020 results will be in. They're not all in yet. And then, of course, we'll extend the analysis to include the year 2020. One of the things we'd like to do, which we started, was to actually make a complete list of all female office holders, namely name, year, position, name of organization, and then analyze that list to see, what kind of positions did women hold? Were they the usual secretary / treasurer? Were there any presidents? Were there any? We haven't done that yet, but we're going to start. We started that partially, and we want to complete it. Another thing we'd like to do is in the CRA returns, you get complete financial data of each organization, namely its operating budget, donations, grants. We'd like to compile that and see, is there a correlation between finances and female participation on boards? Yeah, someone has their hand up, I see.
Yes, hi, Sheema, it's Firdaus. I just wanted to know that, is the data inclusive of queer women? So these would be women who identify as trans or non-binary. I know it won't change the data a lot, but is there any plans going forward to be inclusive?
We just go by name. We go to the CRA database. They tell us the names of who is on their boards. And based on the name, we can tell if it's male or female. That's all we did.
Okay,
that's all we did. We didn't go because again, this is just basic steps. I'm sure if someone wants to go and use this and then, for example, call up the various organizations. I mean, well, how would you find out? I mean, sometimes a lot of people like to keep this information private as well, right? So that's something. Go ahead.
Also wanted to know, Sheema, any plans to present this to any organizations that work with boards, like Board Source and board development? Because I think this is very rich data to inform them to, create new infrastructures for board recruitment, retention, etc.
No, we haven't. One of the things we want to do is we want to present this to other Muslim organizations. Like we want to present this to ISNA Canada. We want to present this to the NCCM. We want to present this to the Muslim Association of Canada. Organizations where, have some sway, but are, who should know what's happening basically in the mosques and Islamic centers of this country, right? We want there to be change. And this is why we want to present this to different segments of the Muslim community, especially those who have, I wouldn't say influence, but are involved in many of these organizations, maybe at a higher level. So that's where we'd like to go next. As far as, board organizations, we can do that, but we don't know how many of these Muslim organizations are in tune with board development and whatnot, right? Or board governance, or I think that's like a totally different conversation. But we want to present this as a mirror to the Muslim community, to say, look, this is where we're at. Are you satisfied with that? Some organizations will not care. We know that, but some will. Number one. The other thing is what we'd like to make available on our website is we're working on it. We'd like anyone to type in their Muslim, let's say their local mosque. Their local mosque, if they're registered with CRA, will come up and they will see how many, historically, how many women were on their boards and what percentage. And then the person should say, well, you know what? I'm not going to donate to you until you change. Like, this is powerful information that we want the community also to be able to use, to go to their mosques and say, I'm not donating a penny to you until you do this. So.
Makes sense. Thank you.
I have another
Yes.
question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So from the chat, it says, did you also look at how long men and women keep their positions? Is the turnout low or high?
No, we haven't done that yet. That's a great question. Again, that will come, that will come when we make a list. We were only going to look at the list of female office holders. But, because that's our concentration, right? Like, how are women doing? But yeah, you could go in there and say, okay, So some of these men have been there for life, right? That's something that could be looked at. But we did want to look primarily at the female office holders.
So
Yeah, I just want to finish these last 3 points. So we want to make these, raw data set available to academics and interested parties for their own research. So this is, like I said, just a springboard. We want to make this available so that anyone who wants to go further can do so, right? And the other thing I just want to say, I did this before some academics, I think in April. And one of the things they asked me, they said, oh, well, what's happening in the US or what's happening abroad? And I say, we are the first. We are the first to do this. And hopefully this will encourage, Muslims in the US or the UK or wherever to do their own research internally, right? And the other thing, we pitched this to the Globe and Mail because the Globe and Mail has been doing a whole series on the power gap of how women and men, there's such a differential in board positions and in many, Bay Street firms and in academia and whatnot. And their response to me was, this is great, but we need to have other religious groups. Like, it just can't be Muslims. Like, how are the Christians or the Catholics doing, or the Unitarians or the Jews or the Hindus? And so this is the first time this has been done for any religious group. We are the first. And I'm hoping this will encourage others to do their own research. Right. And so we're looking to coordinate with academics and their students. So, with the academics, they've got some research projects they're thinking of doing. We'll coordinate with them. And we're going to submit our findings for publication in a peer-reviewed journal at the end of the summer. So that's it. Are there any questions or comments? Or Thank
yes,
you.
Nuzhat has a question.
I had my hand up. So thank you, Sheema, for all that, great information, and it is eye-opening. I'm sure a lot of people on this call were surprised, or maybe not. I think there might be some members here or some individuals here who have, in fact, been on a board of a mosque, and they might be able to share their insights. I know I'm looking at you, Shaheen. So if you have some insights about, what made it happen for you, why were you successful? And then one of the things I wanted to actually suggest, I think, is Abdulhai Patel still with us? Yes, he is. Sorry to put you on the spot, Abdul, but because you've been an imam and you belong to the Council of Imams, maybe as a male who's been involved in these organizations, you could shed some light on the absence of women in more of the boards. So those two, I hate to put you both on the spot, but I think it's good to.
It's okay. I can share my thoughts. No problem.
Please go ahead, and then Abdul, you'll be after Shaheen. I hope that's okay, Sheema.
Oh, please, yeah. And after, I just wanted, before either of them go, there's one thing I forgot to put. One of the things we're going to be doing as part of the Mujadala project is, in addition to these statistics and numbers, we're going to actually be going out and getting stories. We want to especially interview, young women, any women who have been, affected by being excluded from the mosque, and how, not only how it makes them feel, but how it makes them feel and how it's affected them. We want to get the human stories behind these statistics. So that's a project we'll be embarking on as well. Thank you.
So is it my turn?
Yes, please go ahead.
Well, Nuzhat and Sheema, thank you for asking, but it happened in a very surprising manner. It was an AGM of the West Island Islamic Center, and I was attending the AGM, and because I used to visit that mosque from time to time, and somebody asked me if I could take down the minutes of the AGM. So I sat down with another friend of mine, and she and I were taking down these minutes, and she said, I wonder if they will take a woman on the board. And I said, well, why don't you ask that question? And she said, no, no, you ask. So I stood up and I asked the question of the present board at that time, do you have women on the board, or would you be willing to have a woman on the board? And they said, yeah, why not, why not, why not? And they all came towards me. And a couple of minutes later, I was standing at the mic giving my introductory speech. And came time for voting, and I'm not saying anything. I got the most votes, so I was supposed to be the president of the mosque. And I was not ready to take on that responsibility, because I know how those mosques work. I mean, as it is. So I said, no, I'm just going to be on the board. I will help you people to organize yourselves and all that. And what I was thinking, that I would introduce youth programs, and I would introduce some women's programs and things like that. So I go there, and I get an email that it's my first meeting there, board meeting, and it is going to be after Sunday Zohar prayers. And so I'm there, and everybody leaves after the Zohar prayers. I'm there. There's a huge curtain between me and the man. So what I did was I just got up there and I said, well, can something be done about this curtain? So I removed the curtain, and I was known over there as the curtain removing woman there. So anyway, and then I see that they're all sitting on the floor over there, and I have bad hips, so I can't sit on the floor that long. And I said, you're going to have your board meeting on the floor, and so I, out of my own money, bought a table and 8 chairs, because we were 8 or 9 people on the board, and I presented it to the mosque, and so that we can have a decent meeting. I was taking down the minutes. I was doing all the things, but nobody was listening to me. Okay, there were no programs introduced for the youth. There were no programs introduced for the women, and I thought that I would be of some service to them, but I wasn't. So at the next board meeting, I resigned. And they were like, all of them were after me, no, we want you to be on the board, we'll keep you on the board. I said, no, I'm not going to be on the board. So that's my story.
Thank you, Shaheen. Not yes, a lot. Probably not an unfamiliar tale for for someone who's been on a board. So I know I wanted to put Abdul on the spot here. Do you have any wisdom to share with us, Abdul? Is Abdul still with us?
I think so, but he's on mute.
Yeah, Abdul, are you here? Would you like to share any ideas about how we can get more women on these boards, or why do we not find more women on these boards?
I think I can respond to that, because the men don't want to listen to what the ideas that women have, and that is why the women get all disappointed. And actually, I was there 2 years, and the second AGM was after 2 years, and then I just let it go.
Okay, so I'm not gonna. I guess I don't know. Maybe he's not
still
there.
on mute.
But yeah, I know, but he's not responding. So,
Okay.
Nina, you have your hand up.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'm sorry I'm in the car. I just want to tell Sheema, I'm just so impressed. I had no idea that this is the first of its kind. And this is really amazing work that you've done with the little, women power that you had. Inshallah, it's going to be extended. I want to tell you about the Niagara Mosque. My mom is not on the board of directors, she's like a board of governor kind of thing. There's 3 positions. She's one of them, the other 2 are men. So that's pretty great for the Islamic Society of the Niagara Peninsula. And I know that the president of the mosque, the board of directors, is a woman, a young woman. And I believe the VP is also a woman, Shanta Tayeb. The president is Nadia Ali. These are all girls that grew up in the Niagara community, and now they are the leaders there. They're just incredible people. They give a lot of their time, and nothing glamorous. I mean, they're the ones picking up the garbage and the water bottles, unplugging toilets, and God knows whatever else. And not just taking the minutes, which often, of course, that was how we all started. But I just want to put a plug into that wonderful mosque. And I have a feeling it has to do with the fact that the imam, who was Dr. Fuad Shaheen for decades, may God have mercy on his soul, he, he would sometimes, push the women forward or at least not hold them back. And like I said, those women grew up in the mosque. And so maybe the men and all the older generation is not so afraid of them or intimidated by them. Also, my mom just texted, she's a trustee. There you go, she's a trustee.
Well, I'm thinking of one of the things that we should be doing is we should be showcasing, or highlighting success stories.
Absolutely. Because that's the way you do it. Instead of putting down and saying, look at you silly people, let's show these people and say, you could do this too, and you can be successful and raise money and have the youth engaged and be a prospering community that is full of love and kindness and support and empathy and all the other good stuff. Because my kids won't go to the mosque if I don't go to the mosque, right? My kids will never go. It'll just be all old people going, and the youth will not show up.
Right.
There's my piece.
Yeah. No, I think what we'll do is we're gonna highlight. So we might get back to you.
Okay. I'm here.
That's a really good idea. And I'm so sorry. I'm just doing a time check. I think we have like a minute left. If there are there some more questions? I know some people said that they would like to contribute stories. So
yes.
Kim, you shared an email address for us to share stories. Now, what I would like to suggest is we could partner with you in collecting stories. We do that all the time. And the other thing that we could do through our networks, the 17 chapters that we have, they can tell us, how many of them are on mosque boards and on boards of Muslim organizations, and they will have lots of stories to share with you as well. So thank you so much for this great piece of work. Anything we can do to supplement it, to add to the conversation, we will. There used to be an organization called Diversity on Boards that looked at the representation of women on I think it was for-profit boards or corporations, but there's also the Diversity Institute at Ryerson University that's done a lot of work on the issue of board representation. So those are two organizations maybe to partner with, particularly the Ryerson Diversity Institute, because they do a lot of very good research, and because they are an academic institution, they're always interested in partnering with community organizations.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So yes, the session has been recorded, and I really appreciate the time. And Sheema, this was the first discussion, so maybe the next time we could spend more time coming up with solutions and ideas. I mean, there's a lot we can do with this, but that's I think that's a really good first step, highlighting the success stories, and especially the mosque in Newfoundland. So that's a very high percentage of women. Or what about the Winnipeg organizations? Right. So let's find them. Let's find the ones that are members of CCMW already that are involved in their mosques, and we can collect the stories.
Excellent. Yep. Thank you, everyone. And like I said, we will have our website up soon. I mean, this is we don't have a website yet, but we do have an email address, which I believe Kim shared. We're just getting started, so please have patience with us as we continue on. And a great shout out has to go to Lavin. I mean, he's done so much work just in the past few weeks to update everything and to update the charts. And a shout out to Lavin. He's just been wonderful.
Thank you, Lavin. Thank you, Sheema. And this was the first of our many discussions about this topic. And thank you all for attending this afternoon. I know it's a beautiful day here in Toronto. So maybe some of us will go out for fresh air. And until next time, thank you again.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.